sitting back to observe the realignment. The only way I win is if you all lose. I'm so sick of this categorical confinement. Please eat each other so that I may choose.
Edge of Chaos, starring Neurotoxin and Joe Ryan. Edge of Chaos is a free-flowing discussion occasionally dealing with mature topics.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the Edge of Chaos. I'm Neurotoxin alongside Joe Ryan.
Hello.
And today we have a show on the obvious topic of the week. The modern medieval museum of malevolence. The Arab Yugoslavia.
Oh, God.
The 21st century I told you so, you neocon moron. The country formerly known as Iraq.
Is it formerly already, or?
Well, okay, let me actually rephrase that. The place formerly known as the country of Iraq.
Who would have thought that it'd be Pax Saddama? I don't know if you look back.
Saddama.
Pax Saddama, yeah.
Pax Husseina.
So wait, what you're telling me is, I just want to be sure so our listeners know. So the guy that we backed to help us against the Iranians, who we then invaded, then almost killed, then didn't, then let sit for a while, then invade again. Just make sure I get the timeline right. Invaded again, sent on the run, tried, hanged, killed, and then put some other toady in who was in the opposite sect of Islam of the other guy, and who then we backed, but then left, and now we're
it's just confusing. You can't get it all out in one sentence.
And then some other guys come in who are crazier than Al-Qaeda and take him out, but then he wants help, so we're going to ally with Iran to do it. Did I get all that right?
Well, you didn't go back.
I bent my brain in two.
Yeah, and that's only the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So, first thing I kind of want to introduce our listeners to, and one thing I'm so tired of hearing is, well, we stayed in Germany after beating them, and we occupied Japan, and that worked. Yeah.
And Korea, yes, Korea.
Well, Korea, that's a great, right? Yeah, that's working great now.
Good example, yeah.
But even staying with Germany and Japan, what I hear that, and I hear ignorance of history. Those countries, first of all, in the 1940s, middle 20th century, those were some of the most developed countries in the world. Yeah, they got taken over by a bunch of psychotic douchebags for about 10, 15 years in Germany's case, about 30 in Japan's case.
Yeah. And
a lot of people there were looking to get rid of those people. So we had help. We had popular support that we could tap into. They weren't happy with their governments. They wanted to be one country. They're very homogeneous. I've been to both Germany and Japan, and it doesn't get much more homogeneous than that, both in ethnic terms and in cultural terms. So they want to be one country. That helps you be one country.
Yeah, Iraq, and I know you're going to get into this. It's a made-up country. Like, the Brits drew those borders, and there were political reasons to draw them that way. There weren't social or cultural tribal reasons to do that.
Political, they're more economic. It's where the oil is, but it's like an 8-year-old with a crayon could have drawn a better country than that. So you have those countries had the homogeneity, they had the development, and they had the wanting to stay together. In Iraq, you easily do not have any of the three.
The minute some unilateral oligarch or dictator type force is gone, they all go to war for who's going to run it in the vacuum.
It actually goes the other way. So if you look at Iraq became a country in its kind of modern sense. Like you said, Joe, when the Brits left in the late 1940s, the British Mandate drew those boundaries. Now, during the Ottoman Empire, which of course died in World War I, there were three separate, they weren't countries, there were three separate subdivisions of the Ottoman Empire. Now, the Ottoman Empire had this really bizarre organization. This was going on for 400 or 500 years, where they would put everybody with their own religious group. Sunnis with Sunnis, Shia with Shia, even Christians depending on sect of Christianity, Jews with Jews. So they really set up that entire area to be very, very artificially segregated, because wherever you were, you could practice whatever religion you wanted, which is way ahead of Europe. Let's say the contemporary Europe, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like if you're either Catholic or you're dead. Make your choice, right? So, but you could call that tolerance, but it's also a lot of artificial segregation. So it pretty much stayed that way. No one went in there and integrated these guys. It was just, okay, well, we have this whole area that's drawn up very, very segregated religious lines. I mean, probably the average place, the average location in that entire area, we're talking Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, parts of Iran, parts of Turkey, parts of Jordan even. Probably about 90% of the people of the same religion. I mean, we talk about how segregated the U.S. is.
Yeah.
This is nothing. We're very diverse.
So you hate them, and then they hate those guys, and they hate you too. Okay, so you go over there, you go over there, you go over there. Separate corners. It's like any parent with multiple kids, right? You stay in your own corners.
Right.
You stay on your side. You stay on your side. And stop fighting, you fucks.
The only caveat is the parent goes into every kid's room, periodically beats the shit out of them, and then says it's because of something another kid did. So when you let them all together, what are they going to do?
Right. That's true. Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the part you're missing. So in Iraq specifically, you have the Kurds, which have a very small area up in the kind of the northeast, but that's where most of the oil is.
Yes.
So see, people miss this, that the Kurds kind of historically are very oppressed. I mean, there was the whole anti-Kurd genocide by Saddam in the 90s with the nerve gas, which is one of our excuses for why we went into Iraq the second time. And then Iranians historically have abused the Kurds. Turkey, that's always been part of the politics, is the Kurdish minority. So Kurdistan is in 4 official countries: Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran.
That's like the one common enemy they all have, is let's just fuck the Kurds over, yeah.
So, I don't know,
it's a common pastime, maybe you could say. All their governments have took turns oppressing them in their different corners, yeah.
Okay, but again, who drew the boundary to put this one ethnic group that really isn't represented anywhere else in the world into 4 countries? That's just plain stupid. Until you recognize, no, that's where all the oil is. So if you take that and you put them in one country, they're going to fucking own the entire world. We can't do that.
But wait a minute. But Dick Cheney said on the news that the insurgency and the sectarian killings would start to wind down in 2005. So you're telling me that Dick Cheney was wrong about something? That can't be true. That can't be true. Yeah.
You know, I don't know why anyone's still paying attention to Dick Cheney.
I want to pause for the history lesson for a minute and take turns bashing all the nice, the past hit makers, the famous Iraq War architects from 2003 and 2004. Haven't we missed their opinion?
Well, I think we'll get
Haven't we
to
missed
that.
their opinion?
I was hoping to get that a little bit later in the show.
Yeah,
But
we will.
Specifically,
Okay.
I think Dick Cheney deserves a special
double beating
place. I mean, like next to Saddam Hussein in the
yeah.
news. I mean, the guy's a war criminal. There's people who are like, oh, you're talking about way to execute criminals. The guy is a war criminal. War crimes are punishable by death. This is international law. This is not me being personally vindictive.
And his bank account is still flush with all that.
Oh yeah,
money,
I mean,
anyway,
you want to get into
that's a different show,
corporate design.
probably.
We can get to that, but Cheney specifically. I mean, Liz Cheney tried to run a primary challenge against Senator Mike Onsi in Wyoming, who's very stalwart conservative. Like, he's one of the few incumbents that can genuinely claim to be Tea Party, because he's very, very far to the right. I mean, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with that. That's just where he is. I mean, it's Wyoming.
Right.
It's a flyover state.
Well, it's also a gun rack in your truck kind of state. So
yeah, you got a gun rack for your gun rack, right?
It's drive-through liquor store, kind of state.
Yeah.
A free gun with your booze kind of state.
Right. Hey, I'm going there to buy my next six-pack. I like it. But there's good things, there's bad things about that. But the point is, he's genuinely far right. He's not someone that claims to be Tea Party when it becoms convenient.
Not to mention, he really has lived there. And does live there.
Yeah, he's actually
He didn't just move there last week, and then now he's a resident running for Senate.
Well, his dad's not Dick Cheney. He can't afford to just buy a ranch there when he wants to get one for his 50th birthday or some shit. So Liz Cheney tried to run a he's not conservative enough campaign Like, she tried to be, the Tea Partier. I mean, Mike Hanzi just had a great laugh about it. It was like,
she was willing to go, I hate gay marriage, sis, who's gay married. Yeah, take that. All you gay people like my sister that are married.
Not surprising, right?
Well,
in the Cheney family. Can you imagine?
It shows you the depths that she'll sink. There's no like conscience or thought behind the things they say. It's just like Hillary.
There's
say
no
whatever.
thought behind the stuff Cheney says.
There's no thought besides political calculus, it seems to me.
That or they're just that dysfunctional as a family. I don't know. I don't know
both.
them personally.
Or both.
But
you never know.
Here's the thing. So she tries to run this campaign, and she actually drops her bid because in the primaries, the polls show him crushing her by like a 50+% margin, meaning he has 53% more votes than her. People in Wyoming didn't buy it. So to every Cheney out there wanting to run your mouth about politics, when you can't even beat a fellow Republican when they're crushing you by a 53% margin, that's a pretty good indicator nobody wants to hear what the fuck you have to say about anything, unless you're going to come out and confess to war crimes, that you fucked up a whole country and killed hundreds of thousands of people for your profit via Halliburton. Then, yes, I'm all ears, Dick.
He'll
Until
never
then,
admit it.
Shut the fuck up!
He'll never admit it. He's been, Obama's gotten everything wrong in Iraq. Wait a minute.
It's all Obama's fault. Yeah, I forgot.
Hang on a minute. Yeah. Wait a second here. So you weren't. So it was Obama that was Bush's vice president, right? It was Obama saying that Saddam at WMDs. It was Obama that drew up the plans, and I forgot. Sorry, stupid me. I forgot that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the punditry around this.
God.
It's ridiculous. But let's finish the history real quick, and then we can move into this. I know it's kind of dry.
It's tempting.
You have to understand. No, I understand. I'm with you. It's just you have to understand what we're dealing with. So you got the Kurds up in the north, and then the rest of Iraq. If you look at it from a geography perspective, probably 2/3 of it's Sunni, 1/3 of it that's kind of in the southeast is Shia. The thing is, Syria is actually very similar. Kurds way up north. Sunnis in the most of it, kind of the middle, and then Shia, I want to say southwest, like toward Lebanon. That's why they haven't been able to get Assad out of Damascus, because he's a Shia, and that's where all the Shia are. So the Shia tend to congregate in the more developed, more urban areas, whereas the Sunnis, it's a larger area, but it's sparsely populated, it's less developed, it's a fucking desert. This is how that area tends to be divided. I'm not trying to say that Sunni are less developed than Shia or anything. That's just how this historically has come together. Now, the Kurds, some of them are Kurdish Christians, which is the Kurdish Mizanite church. You can look that up. I'm not going to get into that. A lot of them, though, are Sunnis. So when the Kurds kind of get along with the Sunnis, that's why, because they're Sunnis. And the Sunnis, the ones that are Muslim, are Sunnis. And the Sunnis, their number one enemy right now is the Shia. So that's the three parts of Iraq.
So that's why when this started, the Kurds just told the government, just go. Okay. Just set your guns down and we'll just let you leave.
That's actually...
Just keep going until you get to Baghdad, all right?
Well, okay, so it's not entirely accurate. I'll get to that, how that came to be in a second. So when the Brits drew the country this way, and the way they established a lot of the countries, I mean, a lot of in the South Arab Peninsula and Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, this persists to this day. They went around to all these tribal sheiks that were in the area,
right? Because
they understood, unlike us 70 years later, that democracy is not going to work in a place with this level of development. Because back in those days, it really wasn't your sect of Islam that was your number one affiliation, it was your tribe. So imagine if you have a bunch of tribal villages and maybe some larger tribal connections, and even like the cities, a lot of them are tribal, and you have an election. Who is everybody going to vote for? They're going to vote for the guy in charge of their tribe. They're going to vote for their sheik.
Right.
Okay. Now you have a runoff. I can tell you exactly who's going to win. It's the guy with the biggest tribe. And when he wins, now he's the new president. Every other tribe is like, fuck you!
Not my president. Sorry.
I've heard that somewhere.
Familiar.
I've seen that on a bumper sticker in this undeveloped country I was driving through.
Somewhere, yeah.
In any case, this is reality. You cannot have democracy when people haven't bought into it, when there's no compliance. So what they did is they went through and they said, okay, all these tribes and these tribal villages, they're kind of like the fiefdoms in medieval Europe. And they're kind of like little kingdoms. So let's take the biggest sheik, make sure his sons marry the right woman and blah, 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 and we're going to kind of set up a medieval aristocracy where the biggest sheik is the king. That's where a lot of these monarchies came from. Even the Saudi monarchy was kind of there to begin with, but they kind of, they helped them set up a more European medieval system.
Right.
Now, they did that. And the first thing, but most of these kings did, and Iraq actually had a monarchy for a little bit.
Yeah, it did. And the guy he was kicked out of Syria. And ended up
they actually
Iraq.
tried to set him up
King
in
Faisal,
Syria first, and
that didn't take... the locals were less than amiable to that idea. Let's say that.
European aristocracy in Syria that wasn't exactly...
I think the words "get the" and then "fuck out" were involved somewhere in there, yes. Or something like that.
Right. Well, Syria is a little bit different. Syria actually doesn't follow this model to a T. This is more Iraq and then like southern, like the south of the Arab Peninsula to some extent, but not really for Iraq. For Syria. Syria was more of a country. It was more of a French mandate, not British.
Right. Yeah.
So. In Iraq, yes, that guy was king for a little bit. I'm like, God, what do we do with you? Where else could we stick it? Oh, Iraq!
We need it. We have a job opening for a king in Iraq, just opening up. So
where we find the biggest loser that's been kicked out of everywhere else, that's where we're going to put it. Iraq. It's when we think about this, it's mind-boggling. But we're going to get very shortly to how we haven't learned. Our politicians haven't learned. We're shit that this doesn't work.
Yeah. So how pissed Wyomingians were about some carpet-bagging Cheney coming in and trying to run for Senate. Imagine that being like, oh, the new king of your country is this carpet-bagging asshole from Syria.
Right. In a country where we solve those kind of problems by whistling for our entire tribe to pick up their guns and walk on the Capitol. This doesn't end well.
Yeah.
So the first thing all those kings, actually, by the way, another place that had kings was North Africa, Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, those countries.
True.
They're not there anymore. You notice, though, those are not monarchies now.
No.
And what happened was the kings started raising standing armies. There were no standing armies in those parts of the world before. They didn't need them. It's all tribal. They had a lot of foreign legions for the French and the British that fought in World War II, so they had a lot of guys that were trained and that were used to wearing a uniform and being military. Okay, we're going to set you up with a military king so you can protect yourself against all the sheiks that are kind of raw that you got to be king and they only got to be prince of something. It's amazing how people are not happy about that.
You're just kind of a smaller king of a smaller area. What? It's the same thing.
Yeah, but he's not even from fucking Iraq. He's from Syria.
No, it doesn't matter. No, it's okay. It's all right. You still got your little piece. And
I'll tell you what. I'll pull my dick out, and tell him to pull his dick out, and let's see who wins.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to.
It sounds like when like mafia factions war against the Big Don or something.
Kind of right. It kind of is. So they raised standing armies for the first time, really in that region's history, for a lot of it anyway. I think Syria had one already, and maybe Egypt, but that's about it. But don't quote me on that. And within 10 years, the guy in charge of the army, or the guys, plural, in charge of the army, would stage a coup and declare themselves not king, because the whole king thing didn't fly, but president.
Yes,
so Gaddafi,
right.
It took about 20 years in Libya. It's a very small place. That was one country that did that. Nasser in Egypt. Okay. Now, Saddam, interestingly, was the second wave. There was actually the military family called the Qassams.
And he was his right-hand man.
Right, he was in his coup, and they said, no, I don't think you understand it. You're not really doing this presidential job all that well.
I think from what happened with him, from what I remember hearing, is that he was for a while, and he helped him out and like purge all his enemies, but then like he only had one enemy left, his own right-hand man. And by then he was oldish, I think, and Saddam's like, just I'm just president now, okay?
He was grooming his son. Qassam was grooming the younger Qassam.
Right.
And Saddam said, no. I'm more like a son to you than him. Come on.
Which, wasn't there like a thing, by the way, not to get out too like a thing on this, but there was like a parliamentary meeting where all of a sudden, like, all these guys got, like, disappeared out of the room and you never saw them again. And the next thing
they decided to take a long vacation.
Because these were all guys that were supportive of the current leader. And then Saddam came in the room and said, I'm in charge now. And everyone cool with that? Yeah, you cool with that? Okay,
if they're not cool, I have my sidearm and I got 50 guys with machine guns outside. For anyone that's not cool with that.
I'll just be over at the palace if you need me. Over there, palace, big building. Yeah, can't miss it. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, here's the thing. So, to make it even more charming than that, a lot of these dictators at the time, they were pan-Arab National Socialists. And if National Socialism sounds vaguely familiar to something, that's because a lot of them were actually leaders and Nazi sympathizers. Like Abdel Nasser had a freaking statue of Hitler in Cairo.
Oh, I forgot
this
about
is it.
statue.
I mean, charming stuff. And they're all in alliance. Saddam. Now, the Assads in Syria, there was actually a series of coups that Assad's father grew up through and became general and then did his own. So he was like the 5th or 6th military coup there. But same kind of idea. The original PLO, the original Palestinian Liberation Organization, was also in bed with these guys. Also, they were pan-Arab nationalists. So it's very important to recognize these guys, none of them were Islamists. None of them were big into the whole Islamic fundamentalist thing. And when they'd come into power, a lot of them, Saddam was a little different because he came later. A lot of them were Soviet client states. Mm-hmm. Now, we remember the inconvenient fact that Stalin and Hitler were buddy-buddy before they turned on each other. So for him, you're growing up a bunch of pan-Arab nationalists that idolize Hitler. It really wasn't that far off from where he was in the 30s. Right? And then, on top of that, Israel was sort of a Soviet colony post-World War II, but then it switched sides because Stalin went apeshit, that he thought that they were turning against him because he was paranoid as fuck. So they became more of a U.S. colony, which means he started going in and helping all these military coups take out the kings that the British put in. And that's where all these dictators came from. I know it's a little dry, but we have to go through it. We have to understand what's going on. So by the time you have Saddam comes around, I believe in the early 70s?
Actually, he took power
Mid-70s?
late 60s. Very, very late 60s.
Okay, late 60s.
68, 69, somewhere in there.
By that point, the U.S. has jumped into this game. And we're doing like, why does the USSR get to have Nazi sympathizers for client states?
And of course, by then we were riding a really triumphant wave in Vietnam.
Oh yeah, we're doing
so well there,
right?
That we had to reassert our dominance in the region.
Now, for the U.S., a lot of our approach to this was to take over and support the monarchies that the USSR hadn't gotten to yet. So, how we're all best friends with the Saudi monarchy and Kuwait and Bahrain, that's where this came from. They were British client states originally, but they kind of came over to the U.S. Now, another client state that nobody wants to hear about, but this is kind of the last piece of the puzzle, is Iran. Remember that Iran actually emerged from World War II as an actual democracy.
Yes, it did.
They actually had a parliamentary system because Iran is nothing like these countries we're describing. It's very homogeneous. They're not Arabs, they're Persian. Very old history. They were far more developed, and religion, really, the religious extremism was non-existent in Iran. A lot of them are Muslims, though there's a lot of diversity, but this was not. This is Persia. The cardinal sin to call an Iranian an Arab. They hate that.
Oh yeah, they do.
Now,
they get pissed.
But they committed the ultimate sin. They elected a socialist prime minister.
Oh no!
So the CIA went and assassinated him and put back in the Shah monarchy before. That when you do that to a country,
is that the other where they were, let's say, less than amiable to that idea?
Right, and see this thing, when you go in, this is the difference. You go and you take out a dictator like Saddam or Gaddafi that everyone hates anyway. People may not be super happy with what happens in their country. At least they don't miss the asshole you took out.
True.
You come in and you assassinate a democratically elected leader. Now, the guy was an idiot. His economic policies were complete shit. In 5 years, it would have gone to shit and he would have got unelected. But he was looking toward the USSR. He's a socialist and all that. We can't allow that.
Well, look at this country. If someone came in and assassinated Obama, we'd go kick their ass, right? Even if we hate Obama?
Okay. I mean, hold on.
Right?
If someone came in, took out our system of government, as problematic as it is, and installed some asshole that was convenient for them.
You're king now.
You're damn right I'd be picking up a gun. Yeah. It's not my love for Obama.
You
it's
and
my love
Bubba
for
in
this
Texas
country.
would both be marching on his
and
ass.
You,
yeah.
right? It's
and
like, this is not okay.
Probably even Al Gore would pull some gun from somewhere rusty and clean it up, and then go march with you.
Right, but somehow this is okay for us to do in foreign countries. And
that's a good one to use, by the way. Anytime any one of these fucks gets all worked up into a lather about what we should do over there, and these guys, we gotta fix.
Well, you know what? They should do over here.
What if they did that over here? What if they did that over here?
Well, fuck Obama.
I will never. Yeah. Shut up.
Right, exactly. No, I'm with you, 100%. So we put in the Shah, and he was there. Of course, that dictatorship lasted close to 30 years, and I mean, it was a Western-style dictatorship. It was basically complete fascism, do whatever you want, don't fuck with the Shah, and we're going to rob you blind.
Did it last that long?
51? Wow. Well, close to 30.
I guess it would be more like almost 20.
No.
51
almost
to late 70s,
79,
right?
78, 79?
79,
When the Ayatollahs came in. That's a long time. That's a generation.
20-something, yeah.
So, what happens when you have a foreign-backed dictator, and this goes for all these countries, not just for Iran, is the only people that want to oppose him are extremists. Because if you're not an extremist, you're probably not picking up guns shooting at the dictator. That's what happens. You may not like him. So, the original Ayatollah Khomeini, actually was an import. I don't even think he was from Iran, but don't quote me on that. He definitely went to school someplace else. And he was a Shia fundamentalist. So he came at this foreign installed dictator from the perspective of Shia fundamentalism. Mm-hmm. And he actually was responsible for a lot of the shift in the guerrilla warfare in the Middle East away from pan-Arabism, away from Arab nationalism, to religious fundamentalism. We put religious fundamentalism on this fucking pedestal that it really doesn't belong on. In the 70s, it was communism.
Yeah.
That was this. Like, no.
Boogie, yeah.
Scary is a bunch of dumbasses with 6 grades of education running around wanting to kill us. That's scary. What they call themselves? I don't give 2 shits what their ideology is. They don't even understand their own fucking ideology.
They get afraid of the spaghetti monster gives a shit, yeah.
But if they're shooting at you, that's a problem.
Right, yes. Right, yeah. Incidentally, they believe the same kind of thing about other countries like us. Maybe they wouldn't be quite as
the imperialist
if we weren't in their country with guns. Anyway,
so now I think we have an idea of the history. I know it took about 20 minutes, but we make it entertaining. But there's the history.
It behooves us to keep it in mind, and so I want to pivot from that to let's talk about recent history and recent rewriting of history, courtesy of Mr. John McCain.
Oh, good.
Okay, can I ask a question? Honestly, everyone who asks John McCain's opinion and who wants to legitimately hear the answer and what he thinks of stuff, can I just pose one small question? And this is for Hannity, anyone on Fox News, any local fuck talk radio show, anyone. Okay? Here's the question. Why? Why do you give one fuck what this guy says? He's not president. He'll never be a president. He's probably not even going to be a senator after the next election, what I'm hearing out of Arizona. He's going to retire, and then just go away, and that'll be great, won't it? Of course, Fox will probably hire him Fox will probably hire him as a correspondent like Palin. He'll never really go away, but he'll just go away to Fox News Channel at least. We can just avoid that channel. Which is
where he belongs. He has no fucking connection to reality.
He's like, oh, well, I think we should do this. Yeah, well, last month you said we should do that, and Obama did it, and now you oppose it. Well, no, because blah. Okay. Yeah, well, this guy is either lost touch with reality or he's just such a chameleon that he just can't help himself anymore.
While we're on that, okay, and this is actually, I'm glad you brought this up. What is really, and everyone knows I'm not a fan of Obama at all. Suddenly, this is Obama's fault.
Right. That's the narrative.
I'm sorry, usually when
and why? Because he, like Carlin says, what's the worst thing you could do sexually? We pulled out.
Oh, right.
Not a very manly thing to do, is it? No, when you're in fucking someone, you gotta fuck them to the end. Fuck them to death. Yeah.
Right.
That's why.
Okay.
That's why.
So, now, this is why the history is relevant. So, let's establish this. I'm sorry, I don't give a shit what John McCain thinks of what I'm about to say. For 60 to 70 years, the only stable government, this so-called country that was just makeshift by the British Empire, has been brutal dictator after brutal dictator that literally held everyone by the balls to keep it from falling apart. That is not a coincidence.
What does he envision? Us just being and backing another dictator, just being there militarily too to make it stick? I mean, it seems like it's the only acceptable thing to these people.
Well, here's the thing. So the reason, I'm not excusing Saddam, but the reason he was so brutal is because if he weren't, then the fundamentalists and the extremists that want to fight him would have thrown him out ages ago. And also, remember, he was a Sunni. So we have this, and the Brits did the same thing. They have this fashion, kind of this pattern of installing the minority into power. Because then you can keep the majority under control. And Iraq is a Shia majority country. So that was part of the deal. Part of the deal was because Saddam was a Sunni. He wasn't an extremist. He wasn't a fundamentalist in religious terms, but he was a Sunni. So a lot of the fundamentalists in Iraq, believe it or not, are Shia. They're not Sunni, and they're very friendly with the Iranian government because
who
they're
we're now
Shia.
talking about maybe getting to help us with this ISIS problem.
I can't even get my head around that.
Okay, if our listeners, have you seen the Jon Stewart bit about
that
this?
is- wow.
The Middle East love story. If you haven't, please hit up either our
strongly
Facebook
recommend,
page.
yes.
We'll link it. Just go to the site Daily Show. You can type it in Google. It's there. Just trust me. Friggin' hilarious. Because
It's so true.
It's so true. Hey, Bibi Netanyahu, don't worry, we were just negotiating with your two mortal enemies and secretly trading deals for oil and missiles and this and that. Oh my God. It's like, you just lose track, and then you say history. The Iraq War was less than 10 years, or it was like 10 years ago. Just over 10 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. They're acting like we already forgot all that happened and we'll just trot out all these idiots that were wrong the first time. Hey, you completely fucked this up before. What's your opinion on what we should do now? Please tell us. I'm sure it'll be a winner. My God.
No, I'm with you 100%.
God.
Yeah.
You know what? Fucking goddamn Bill, what is it? Bill Kristol and Paul Wolfowitz and these fucking
Lindsey
idiots.
Graham.
These guys are as qualified to talk about war planning in Iraq as Jamie Dimon is to talk about business and financial ethics in America today.
Yeah, really.
Good God. Seriously? It's, I don't know if you've seen me, listeners, but maybe our picture is on the... It's like me giving you diet tips, okay?
Yeah,
Let's
there
just
you
put
go.
it that way. Rush Limbaugh's secret to a smaller ass in 30 days. That's the same thing, all right?
It really,
God.
it really is, though.
It makes you think these bookers of these talk shows, these Sunday shows, just Google someone that goes Iraq knowledge, and it just comes up with these people. Yeah, they have knowledge, and completely fucking it all up and going in there with false pretenses.
I like the way Jon Stewart said it best. He said, unparalleled knowledge of the region. Unparalleled because it's not paralleled by anyone with knowledge of the region.
Right.
So,
like Donnie Rumsfeld. Oh, we'll have the country put together and democracy installed in 6 months. There's a quote for you.
That guy just... I understand where a lot of politicians are coming from. Rumsfeld, I just don't get. And Rumsfeld does understand Iraq. There's a picture of young Rumsfeld shaking Saddam's hands.
Circa 80, something, 81, 82.
That was the reconciliation
Yeah.
of the U.S.-Iraqi relationship, and we basically lured Saddam back in because we had to fight the Ayatollahs in Iran. So... yeah, it's like when Rumsfeld's like, oh, I want to go get Saddam. Yeah, you want to go say hello to your old friend? Have a couple drinks with him? I mean, really? The short memory of this shit is just, it's incredible. So, and Joe, you remember this. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we were still in college, and we're sitting around with a couple of other friends of ours drinking, and, well...
in his garage,
people do in college, right? This is normal.
Sitting here drinking and shitting on the government, yeah.
And we're talking about this war that we're about to start in Iraq. And I remember we were all in agreement. That country will fall apart the moment we leave. And it'll fall apart because nobody there, because of that segregation that we talked about, has any desire to actually be one country. It's only worked because the dictator that wanted it to be one country was so brutally repressive. We said this. We're more qualified on this than John McCain or Donald Rumsfeld. We were more qualified when we were 19 years old. And that's sad.
And yeah, we were drinking. We were 19. What of it? Anyway.
Exactly.
But I remember, incidentally, and we're not making this up. Those of you who are listening that know us too personally, we're not making this up. Both of us were saying there won't be WMDs found. This is complete bullshit. I remember us going through the whole list, and I can't see where most of that was wrong.
Well, because
it was so nakedly just
all it takes
opportunistic on our part.
is a basic understanding of the demographics and the geography. So now what's happening? Now let's talk about ISIS. Now I think we're ready to talk about ISIS. Where did ISIS come from? Well, technically the Islamic State of Iraq started under al-Zarqawi, and Al-Qaeda funded them and all that, and they were there during the occupation. But for the most part, where they've come from is the Syrian rebels. The essay. Remember we talked
Free
about
Syrian Army,
a couple of years ago that we shouldn't be meddling in that conflict. We shouldn't be
the Al Qaeda
funding
sympathetic rebels,
and we shouldn't be giving them weapons. We talked about this a little bit.
Not all the rebels are, but these were one of the dominant ones. And this is why when Obama says we're going to arm the rebels, I don't even think that he knows which group he means by that.
Well, here's the thing.
Or that there are different groups.
You can't tell. And a lot of it, because funding and arming rebels in foreign conflicts is a violation of the Constitution. Just let's put that out there. It's nothing that allows the president to do that unless Congress agrees.
How do we do that anyway? Do we just call them on the phone?
We funnel this through the Saudi and the Qatari government. You know the Qatari government, the one that has a Taliban embassy? That Qatari government? Yeah.
I call the Qatari capital the psychotic midway because there's a Taliban shop, a Hezbollah shop.
There you go.
They have all their little storefronts with their little symbols out front.
It's like the Las Vegas of fundamentalist Islam. And we got one of the largest U.S. military bases in the world.
Oh yeah,
fantastic. So.
Future site of the World Cup. Hey, got World Cup action, 2022.
There you go.
In 130-degree summer heat. Anyway, sorry.
So you give money and weapons to these two-timing assholes that are housing the Taliban. Didn't we go to war with a country for housing Al Qaeda? You remember that? Right?
Which, I mean, to be fair, it's we thought we could just get rid of the Taliban and that it would just be that easy. Yeah, that's not happening.
A separate show,
thing.
Yeah.
Whatever, they're going to do what they're going to do. But point being, these guys have their hands in all the honeypots right now, don't they?
We give them money and weapons to give to the Sunni rebels in Syria against Assad with a very stern warning, none of this goes to the Islamist militias.
I was going to say...
What fucking planet are we on?
I have a dumb question. So, we're sure they're not just going to hand it to someone else? That won't happen, right? No.
The Saudis
so you guys are totally going to give it to the rebels in Syria, right? Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
What country was bin Laden from? I'm trying to remember. What was the name of it? Start with an S.
I think it rhymed with Crazabia or something like that.
Something like that? Yeah. Right, yeah, exactly. So we fund these rebels, we give them money, that's why they're able to stand up to Assad, because, you're not going to do very well against the government with tanks and planes when you're shooting out of fucking slingshots. And then, a year into the conflict, we're like, hey, all these groups, they're waving Islamist flags. The Al-Nusra is involved, and they're connected with Al-Qaeda, and it's like, hey, King of Saudi Arabia, what are you doing? This is not okay. They're not cool enough to sit with us.
Yeah.
And the king's like, well, they're cool enough to sit with you in the 80s, the Mujahideen, when we were fighting that guy. Yeah, shut up, don't talk about that. The voters are listening. Yeah, no, don't say that. Okay, well, anyway, they're Sunnis, so we're Sunnis, Allah Akbar, and shit. And then there was a big fuss, there's a big problem in some of the Syrian congresses that sit in Qatar. There's another Las Vegas building, all the Syrians in exile that are against Assad, and they're all Sunnis, where there's actually a split that are some of the people that are more pro-West, because again, Syria is way more westernized in Lebanon than there are a lot of other countries there, and some of the more Al-Qaeda affiliated groups. And what happened was they split. And a lot of the Islamists, the Sunni Islamists, joined the Islamic State of Iraq. And they became ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. So even though their command and people in charge are Iraqis, and I get this, no, they're from Iraq, they're not from Syria, Obama didn't fund them, from Obama apologists. Well, he gave them all the weapons that they're using to take over these cities, so as far as I'm concerned...
And now, what was it they were saying? That they're the richest terrorist group in the world now because they raided the Bank of Mosul and have, $400-some million now on them?
When I say that, this is the modern Museum of Medieval Malevolence. That's how they used to do it. You get in there, you take over a city, you raid the treasury, you rape all the women, pensions and spoils.
Burn all the buildings down, and then you leave. Yeah.
Hey, wait. Who was it that set up medieval aristocracy in these places?
So that's why instead of rolling around in foreign-looking Toyota pickup trucks like usually rebels are, they're rolling around in Lexus SUVs and shit now.
Yeah, see,
Rolls-Royce Terrace mobiles.
That's not good management. You don't keep control of your own people by doing that. Just to put that out there. These guys are great at taking power and terrible at keeping it.
Yeah.
So now we essentially have two sides in this conflict, both of whom we funded and raised. There's no way around that. Now, the Iraqi government that we put in, yeah, they're weak as shit. They have no balls. They're actually trying to be in a democracy in a country that's not ready for a democracy and doesn't want to be one country. And
it's questionable if al-Maliki or if Maliki is actually... He's done some shady shit. Let's just put it that way.
He's a crook.
Right.
He's not a brutal dictator
and we don't have
Saddam.
We don't have a great track record of picking guys that aren't crooks. Karzai is no better.
Oh, Karzai is
a goddamn criminal. Yeah.
But here's the thing.
He was the guy BP picked.
Right. And Maliki wasn't? No, Maliki was ExxonMobil was the U.S.
Right, ExxonMobil.
Him and Dick Cheney.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, the advance, everyone was like, oh my god, they're advancing, and they've stalled because, what's happening? They hit the Shia areas of Iraq.
Thank you, Joe.
And that's why they stalled, yeah.
Right. So al-Maliki, of course, he set up a very Shia government. It is way less brutal than Saddam's government, I'll give you that. That does not make you not a dictator. A dictator is someone that is not elected. That's not representative. It's not answerable to the people.
He did purge certain people out of the government once he took power, yes? I thought I heard something.
Yeah, a lot of Sunnis. But there were reasons. I mean, some of them were also tied to the Sunni militia. Again, you can't just come in there
and have
everyone in a room and said, you guys are a democracy now.
And you're going to get along, right? And have debates, not blowing each other up, right?
Well, wait. The debate with my AK-47. That's
you debate the AK-47 into his face, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is
right.
Yeah, again, I'm not trying to bash Iraq or say that they're savages or whatever, but the big problem really isn't the development, although that's a piece of it in some of the Sunni parts. It's really the fact that they don't want to be one country. So whether
never were, really.
Right, exactly. Whether you're a dictator or a crook, you can abuse this. You can say, look, all the Shia want to be with all the Shia, and since Baghdad is mostly in the Shia territory, it's actually one of the few mixed cities, I can just set up an all-Shia government and just rob the Sunnis land. Hey, why are all those tribes out there in Sunni land joining ISIS? Well, because you're a fucking moron is why. But right, so this guy is he's failed as a leader. Yeah, he's not remotely as brutal as Saddam, I'll give him that. That doesn't make him a democratically elected prime minister. He's an idiot. He's a crook. And he's not really even popular with the Shia side, but the Sunni side is just like, fuck him.
Yeah.
So now ISIS marches across all the Sunni territory. And, the reason that they're able to advance is because no one's fighting them. You have a bunch of highly undeveloped Sunni villages where the tribal leader just picks up his AK-47, shoots in the air, and says, we're joining ISIS. And all the men in that tribe are now part of ISIS.
Okay, we're ISIS now.
Interestingly, a lot of those Sunni tribes were our friends during the occupation because they're not big on Islamic fundamentalism. They fought ISIS back then. But the Shia government we put in place has been so bad to them that they've turned around and joined ISIS. You see how this works? You see how this meddling bullshit, this is what it brings. So we created both of these monsters. And now we have our politicians from every side just plain lying to us, fear-mongering, and abusing the fact that Americans do not understand the politics of the region.
And you know what the first lie is, everybody? The fact that they say they understand it. That's usually the first lie. They go, I get it, I'm the only one who gets it, and now you should do what I think we should do, which is blah. And then they just say some shit like, bomb somewhere, which is usually McCain's standard answer.
Well, that's McCain, right? Yeah. Well, no, for McCain, I disagree.
Or pick a rebel group to arm, and then we'll just do that.
Because that's worked so great the last 6 times we did it. Right.
Well, have 3 sides fighting with our guns. Why not?
Well, it's great for the gun manufacturers.
Right,
great for the weapons dealers. Here's the thing, Joe. I disagree with you regarding what you said earlier that McCain's inconsistent because I think Jon Stewart made this point on the Daily Show. He's very consistent. It's very simple. Bomb, ba-bomb, 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 bomb, ba-bomb, bomb, bomb. Just bomb everybody. That's the
one thing he's consistent about. Yeah.
Okay. Now,
throw a dart at a country, he'll bomb it.
Right. So now, Kurdistan. When we get to Kurdistan's actually been a country for a while. This didn't come out of this specific conflict. When the Iraqi government, the Shia government, first started to break down, which was a couple years ago, really right after we left, the Kurds, who are very organized, it's pretty developed up there too. They're not part of really the Sunni-Shia mess, although some of them are Shia, or Sunni, I apologize, some of them are Sunni. They just said, you know what? We're just going to make our own country. We're going to close our borders. We're going to speak our own language. We're going to coin our own currency. We have all the oil. We don't
Who's
give
gonna
a
stop
shit.
It's
not who's going to let us. It's who's going to stop us. Right?
I was watching a thing too about how they did that in Syria. They just said, "Oh, okay, government's in shambles. Fine, all you government bucks out." There's the border. Go that way.
They're expecting you in Damascus.
Yes.
Oh, they're not? Well, that's not my fucking problem.
Good luck getting there. That's all I can say. Yeah, you're not
leave.
You don't got to go home, but you can't stay here. Yeah,
there you go.
It's closing time.
Yeah, so Kurds, and even parts of Iran and parts of Turkey that are Kurdish, they've pretty much become one country. They've opened the internal
Turkish
borders.
side is where the Syrian side gets all its support. Like the guys who join the fight, they come from there. A lot of them have and when they get when it's too hot there or something, they've been in combat and they go to get away from the fight. That's where they go back to.
Right, they go vacation in the Kurdish part of Turkey.
There were a lot of the reason why is they were in exile in Turkey. They were kind of just hiding there once Syria was cracking down. But now that it's so back open again, they've been going back.
True. So Kurds, the Kurdish part of Turkey has always been part of the Turkey political mess. And then Iran is one of the most oppressive places against the Kurds. It always has been. So now they're having a problem because the Kurds in Iran consider themselves part of Kurdistan too. So for all intents and purposes, even though if you look at a map, you don't see it, that's a country now. And again, thanks to the Ottoman Empire, they don't have to worry about minorities to oppress. They're not there.
Right.
So you have that. And because the Kurds are Sunnis, I wouldn't say they're in bed with ISIS, but they can get along with ISIS because ISIS is all gung-ho, let's kill all the Shia. They're kind of neutral on Kurds. They have a common enemy in the Syrian government and the Iraqi government, so they typically don't kill each other. There's some skirmishes, but they're not at full-blown war. So if you notice...
It's enemy of my enemy is my friend action. Totally.
So if you look at a map of Iraq, pretty much everything that ISIS has taken has been Sunni Arab territory. And kind of some of the clashes, like Kirkuk is the other big mixed city, because that's half Sunni Arab and half Kurd. And when all the Shia military, thousands of them, just kind of pissed themselves and ran away when ISIS came, which, by the way, I would have done the exact same thing. You're in a place where nobody likes you.
Right.
The city will rise up and kill you, and the Kurds will stand by and watch. So there's nothing to fight. They're not going to die for this idiot government that we put in place. It's understandable.
This is sort of like when we rolled into Iraq in the early 90s. They weren't fighting. The army wasn't fighting for
Right, no one fought for Saddam.
The Republican Guard did a little, but the army was like, no, here, gun down, I'm there.
Yeah, right, go get you.
I surrender.
You're going to go to the palace and get him? You want to drag him out here?
Directly that way, a little to the left maybe, but yeah.
Same thing with Gaddafi, really. Nobody fought
blow
for
him
him.
up, yeah.
Right, but... When this was against the guy that we didn't like, that we were invading to get, this was considered normal. Yeah, you see, he's a dictator. That's why no one's fighting for him. Now, the guy we installed, the military treats him exactly the same way, and we're going apeshit. Oh my God, his military didn't fight for him. Yeah, that tells you a lot about the guy you put in power, doesn't it?
That's 0 for 2, just for those counting at home, on our Iraq leader success rate. Yeah. Not the best track record, let's just say.
Yeah. Someone that was in favor of putting this guy in, we probably shouldn't have in the room when we're going to discuss what to do about Iraq. Now, so as soon as those guys ran away, the Kurds set up their own positions and said, okay, this is the Kurdish border. And you ISIS guys, you understand Kurdistan, not ISIS. You comprehend. And they did. There's no problem. There have been some clashes, but it's not a war. So now the Iraqi government, this is really interesting to me, who are Shia, they're trying to reach out to the Kurd militias to join them in fighting ISIS. However, they're also reaching out to Iran, which is one of the countries oppressing Kurds, and Kurdistan is technically violating their borders. Anyone else see a problem here?
Yeah. Right? And they still want our help, but we have our own problems there. Yeah.
And okay, so now the way I look at this, so the first lie that you hear, and this is actually interesting because even though Obama and the Republicans are constantly bashing each other, this is one thing they agree on, and it's complete and utter bullshit. They act as if it's a given that ISIS is going to march through and take the rest of Iraq. And when you say, no. Well, look, they did it for all this 2/3 territory. Yeah, but that's all Sunni territory.
Right. They were. I know Hannity was like... Hannity, our old friend, Was like, oh, they're landing helicopters on the embassy in Baghdad just in case we have to pull out like Saigon and the yeah. That's the rhetoric.
It's stupid.
This is Obama's Vietnam, right? We're gonna pull out of there. Just like pull out. It's not manly. Yeah.
These guys are going through and committing Shia genocide. Now, there's not very many Shia in these places, but like the military, the people that they captured, the prisoners of war, they actually posted videos of themselves executing them. Just summary executions, no tribunal, no trial. Just, okay, you're Shia, that means you're dead. And now they're marching into the part of Iraq that's almost exclusively Shia. Anyone else think they might just need a little more resistance there than they did at Mosul or in Kirkuk?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, reasonably speaking. This is stupid, and all it takes is 10 minutes of understanding Iraq's history. Okay, any politician that says this, that is full of shit. Stop listening to them.
Well, and so I want to pivot to and I hate defending Obama. I really do. I really, why are you making me do this? Why? Why, you neocon fucks? Why must I do this? But this whole thing of Obama's fucking it up. Here's the thing that really just makes me laugh. And also it makes the bile rise up in my throat, is the Hannity thing that he kept repeating over and over again this week. Bush had this war won! He had this war won, and Obama had to come in and lose it for us. In 2011, the sex rankings were down, things were stable, the surge worked. And then we pulled out, not manly, and then now everything's falling to shit 3 years later.
So we succeed when we occupy a country and leave our military there indefinitely. So that's these guys' idea of success?
And the only two words that I keep thinking, and I've had my issues with Ron Paul in the past. I've had my issues on certain things. We've discussed them, different show. Same issues with Rand, a lot of them, different show. But the one thing, the two words that keep ringing in my ears all week, as I've been hearing these idiots try to break this down and try to understand it and flail around in trying to do it, is the two words entangling alliances. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a better example than what the fuck is going on right now. I mean, this enemy and that enemy is our friend, but they weren't our friend, but they will be our friend, and they have been our friend in the past, but now they're not, and then these guys aren't our friend, but now they're our enemy. So I will say I can't blame the average American who just tries to watch the news, which that's your first mistake, but anyhow, and tries to piece together what's actually going on out there and having a well-informed opinion, because, the entire rhetoric rests on people's ignorance of what's actually going on, and more to the point, most politicians involved in the issue on our side don't give a shit what's actually going on. They want to react to what they think is going on. So that's just how I see it. This is how I'm perceiving it, but it makes my head hurt. It really does.
Here's the thing, and one thing I'm actually loving about this, one I think is the positive about this, is there's absolutely no way for Democrats or Republicans to demonize the other side without looking culpable for this mess. You can't get out of it. Both parties are completely complicit. Now, they did different things. So, for example, Republicans obviously come out, and one thing is like, oh yeah, Bush had the war won. No, you saying he had the war won does not mean he had the war won. There is actually a story about how ISIS has captured some old chemical weapons factory. And like, oh look, they had WMD. Bush is right. Bullshit. That factory was there. Well, hold on. Yeah. We had a policy definition for what qualifies as WMD. And that shit did not, because it was destroyed. The factory is there. It's not operational. Some of the weapons are there. They're not operational. It's just leaking chemicals. We knew about it. We went in and we didn't touch it because we figured it's not worth fucking with, because it's contaminated. It's not worth trying to blow up. It's not useful. So if the Wahhabis want to play with a bunch of chemicals, yeah, Wahhabi, go. Play with the shiny chemicals. They'll make you grow big and strong. You'll meet your 72 virgins earlier.
Yeah. This holds about as much water as Hannity going when Bashar al-Assad was using the chemical weapons recently. The red line. Anyways. That Hannity's like, oh, see? That's where Saddam's WMDs went. It went to Syria. That fuck, he hit him in Syria, and Assad had him, and now he's one of those people, and Obama let him, and he's not responding, and it's his fault. You see how we just get so deep?
I'll tell you where Assad got his chemical weapons. He bought them right here in the U.S. from a contractor in Maryland that was building them for the U.S. in the 60s and 70s, and then we stopped buying them because we switched completely to nukes, and they had nowhere to go, and the Reagan administration wasn't paying attention. So it's like, oh, look, why are they selling chemical weapons all over the world? Because they can.
Yeah.
So, come on, Syria does not need to get chemical weapons from anyone. They have enough of them for 10 lifetimes. No one's questioning the presence of WMD in Syria. It's not Iraq.
It wasn't right. That he's changing. It's literal, just rewriting, moving goalposts, the whole thing. The worst kind of charlatanism is going on right now.
However, we can adjust reality to make it look like we're right. That's what they're going to do.
And I don't want to get off on a tangent on Hillary, but let's not forget she's going to be running, and she supported that war too in Iraq.
Oh, absolutely. But we'll get to that. So with Republicans, it's that he had a war won and we pulled out. By the way, all the pulling out agreements as far as how it goes in Iraq were signed by Bush. The only thing Obama said was the date. Well, no, the timeline he changed a little bit. So if we'd stayed there an extra few months, none of this would have happened.
Which, what I heard, he changed the timeline and made it longer that we were there. I thought I heard.
Entirely sure. I don't quote me on that. Now, the other thing that is Obama's fault, and this is legitimately Obama's fault, is feeding those Syrian rebels.
That is his fault.
Now, that is his fault. So as soon as you get on a show, you get on any Fox News show, just name one, and you mention, see, it's Obama's fault, it's those Syrian terrorists right now. You go to Democrats, though, okay, and you want to talk about defending Democrats. I don't know if I'm defending Obama, because I'm not, okay, and it goes, you see, Bush broke that country, and now it's going to shit. Excuse me? What?
He did roll in with tanks and bombs and shit.
No. Okay, let me throw out neurotoxins theory on Iraq.
Is it like bombing rubble?
If we hadn't gone into Iraq, Saddam would have died. His health was failing. He'd had 2 strokes. Look this up. This is okay.
He was an old man.
On his deathbed. On his own, he was very ill. And there were 4 people, no less than 4, vying for his office. Have you ever seen what happens when the dictator dies and there's 4 guys vying for his office?
Russia, I'm looking in your direction.
The USSR in the 50s when Stalin keeled over. Yeah, so it's
or even when Lenin keeled over and Stalin took over.
Yes, it's a bloodbath.
Yes.
So you have his 2 sons and a couple generals. So it would have gone to shit exactly the same way that it's going to shit now. If it would have gone to shit sooner. Because all it's ever wanted to do, its natural tendency, has always been this Sunni, Shia, Kurd split. The difference is it doesn't have to involve fundamentalist Islamists and these crazy guerrillas. By the way, didn't the head of Al-Qaeda, al-Zawahiri, he disowned ISIS because of human rights concerns?
Right, yes.
Al-Qaeda disowned them over human rights concerns.
Right.
I can't even get my head around that.
Yes.
But Obama's giving weapons to guys that Al-Qaeda disowned because of human rights concerns. If anyone thinks we're defending Obama, I wanted to play that for themselves a few times. Now,
which doesn't mean Bush should have gone in. Obviously, that war was illegitimate, all that stuff. But I see what you mean. Yeah.
Where do we get this idea? That if Obama is good, if Obama is bad, Bush is good, and if Bush is bad, Obama's good. No, they're both fucking idiots. Their policies are about a dime's worth of difference.
Yeah, we've said that on the show. And not to mention, you know what, Democrats, slow your roll and shut the fuck up. Because you know what? How many of you assholes voted for this war, too?
Yeah.
You know, Kerry voted for it, Hillary voted for it. I mean, I've lost count of how many idiots that are now, about, this is Bush and he started this way. You voted for it! And so it just it galls me that really both of them wanted this war in some regard or another. It's not to say there are some Democrats that legitimately didn't want it and stuck to their guns.
There's some Republicans that didn't.
But for some reason they're not the ones that get on TV and talk about it. It's funny how that works, right? Yeah, it's always the people who voted for it that we're going to ask, what should we do now? Yeah, and expecting to hear anything insightful.
So when I look at Iraq now, and not just Iraq, that whole area, I look at Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, even Kurdistan up there in the north with parts of Iran and parts of Turkey. I look at it and I actually say, okay, these borders actually make sense. Sunni with Sunni, Shia with Shia, Kurds with Kurds, and you got parts of Lebanon and Syria that are more westernized that are kind of their own thing. Now, I'm not saying there should be Islamist fundamentalists in charge, but that's our fault. We've kept them all with artificial borders for so long by force. These are the only guys that want to stand up to us. This is what happens when you meddle. You give people what they don't want, you force it down their throats, decade after decade, they radicalize.
Yeah, and this is the thing, if everyone wants my overall opinion, where my specific opinions will come from, the wellspring of them, stay the fuck out of there. Just don't. You know, okay, we fucked it up. It's a mess. We made it. All that stuff. But you know what? Aside from, like, offering humanitarian aid for, like, refugees and things like that, I think we need to just stay out of it.
Right. And
stay out of it.
We don't
have a track record of success. We just don't.
No, we have
if we
not.
did, it's a different discussion. But we don't. I'm sorry. There's the same idiots that fail. I just can't do it over and over again. This time we got it right. This time we can do it.
Don't.
No, you don't. You just don't.
And then you have... Okay,
just stop it.
But the thing is, the other thread that I've heard, I've actually heard this is a minority opinion. We need to get involved because now Iran is going to jump behind Iraq, the Iraqi government, and they're going to march in and they're going to take all of that Sunni land. And my response is...
Yeah, I would like to see that.
If Iran could have done that, that would have happened.
It would already happen,
yeah.
Right.
The thing is...
They're not a small country. They have a lot of military.
And if they've got all the Shia in Iraq on their side, that's a big thing. So what I'm saying is, these guys... Okay, I mean, think about this. And I'm talking to you conservatives now. Okay, I'm talking to conservatives that are very nationalistic and they're, America, these are enemies of America. Think of it this way. You got Al-Qaeda... or somebody that's too brutal for Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Sunni fundamentalists on one side of this conflict, and you got Shia fundamentalists in the form of the Ayatollahs in Iran and everyone that's following them on the other, and they've decided they want to kill each other. What's the problem?
Pick a side. Yeah, go ahead, choose one.
No. I don't see why. What's the problem?
Yeah, I don't.
The only thing we need to do is tell each of them what the other said about their mothers. Please, go, do it.
Well, it hurts our oil interests, I guess.
I don't even know that it does, because I think oil gets overestimated in this particular case, because as long as they fight, they all have oil, including the Kurds. If they fight, they'll be desperate, and they'll compete, and they'll sell their oil cheaper. Now, we have oil deals with the Saudis, and the Saudis are on the Sunni side, so they could fuck with oil prices to help this ISIS a little bit. But that's not really the major issue here. I think what it is, honestly, we look at special interests. There's more than just oil. Oil always gets cited in this. It's not just oil. First and foremost, it's the defense contractors who are happy as long as we're bombing someone.
Right.
It's we helped the Syrian rebels who are Sunnis. We helped them bomb Assad for a while. Now let's shift gears again. Let's help Iran bomb them. As long as we're buying the bombs. Hey, bombs 2 for 1. Yeah.
We wonder why there's no shortage of people hating America when they pick through the bomb fragment that just ripped their home apart. It says USA right on there. Gee, I wonder. Where could that hatred all be coming from? I don't know.
It's not endearing.
Yeah, right. No.
Us to anybody.
Have you seen, like, the Vice, by the way, where they go into these villages where literally the people that are poor, they make a living selling the scrap metal of all the discarded military equipment that we left behind there? Rotting tanks, Humvees, engine parts. Because literally, I think there was this one thing where there's these engines out of Humvees just everywhere in that area. Because why? Well, if the soldier destroys the engine, they get a brand new Humvee. It was some kind of thing like that.
So they sell it,
right? Yeah, they were just. We lost that Humvee. It's out somewhere. Yeah, we need a new one, please. Yeah,
we saw a guy hitch some camels to it and walk away.
Because every time they asked, they go. So what do? They just trash the fucking Humvee. I mean, it was like a real life GTA.
Trash it. They pull it apart and you sell it.
You steal the car and you just tread into a tree and then go steal another one. It doesn't really matter.
It's scary. So, we're delivering resources to those countries.
But it's just, we wonder why it is the way it is over there. It's because we can't help ourselves.
Right.
I'm sorry.
As far as the Republicans go, especially the McCains and Lindsey Grahams, it's all about the military contracts. Remember, we talked about Cheney earlier on the show, the former CEO of Halliburton.
Right.
Of course, what does he want? What he wants? War, because war is profitable.
And who was over there? Halliburton. Yeah,
now,
exactly.
Getting over to Obama, though, not to leave those assholes without culpability here. This is more, there's wartime intervention and there's peacetime intervention. Now, peacetime intervention doesn't blow quite as many heads off, but it's equally ridiculous because you have, one of the reasons for al-Maliki and that government being put in place is because they gave us a sweet deal, not just on oil. Think about it. I heard this on the news. We have the largest U.S. embassy in the world is where? Baghdad,
yeah.
5,000
It's really expensive.
people.
Yeah, it's huge.
Why?
Yeah.
Because there's so many U.S. corporations still doing business there. They're not blowing shit up, and it's not just the oil companies. You think that you talked about humanitarian aid. You think humanitarian aid is not a profitable thing? Someone has to make all that shit, and then they need a reason to bring it to that country.
It's another government nipple to suck on, yeah, I guess.
Right. So, if you want to talk about who's Obama in bed with, that's who. Why is he talking about, maybe Iran's not so bad. Maybe their Islamist fundamentalism and their funding of Hamas and Hezbollah are just misunderstood.
I've seen news reports on the humongous Baghdad embassy. It's crazy.
Because
it's like the size of a presidential palace. It's huge.
What's going to happen, folks, if we don't get involved in it, thankfully it's looking like we're probably not, Iran is going to, basically they're going to get in there, they're going to help the Iraqi government, they're going to help them hold off ISIS, and they're going to slowly erode and lynch al-Maliki, and I personally am not going to shed a tear over that asshole, and they're going to install a psychotic Shia fundamentalist dictator that answers to Iran. And the day that happens, all the peacetime U.S. interest in Baghdad is like, hey, it's like you were saying, you don't gotta go home, boys, but
you can't stay here. Yeah,
can't stay here.
That new fancy new embassy will be the new al-Maliki presidential palace.
Won't be al-Maliki. It's way too modern. It'll be some psycho that answers to Iran. They'll come up with some lesser Ayatollah title for him. It'll be a Shia dictatorship. Right?
Yeah.
So, if you allow that, then you're going to, then basically Obama has, and his cronies have lost billions and billions of dollars building that fucking embassy. So, now we have to scream about how we have to get involved, hoping that if we get involved, we can keep Iran out. And I got news for you, folks. We can't. That ship sailed because the Shia fundamentalists hate al-Maliki too.
Yeah, and it's like I really want to ask anyone honestly, would you be prepared to send a son to fight that one? Really? And I think, and this is the one good thing to come out of this, is like so many people were duped, and I say duped because I mean, the post 9/11 feelings, emotions that are irrational were manipulated and used by the Bush administration to start that war.
It's called terrorism for a reason.
Well, yeah, and we were pulled into that war by an opportunistic asshole of a president. That's obvious to most people.
I didn't
with
know
a brain.
Dick Cheney was president.
He pretty much was. The one thing
yeah, there you go.
Good to come out of this, and me and the Tea Party disagree on many, many, many things, but what I like about where we are now politically in this country is that the burden of proof to the American public is so much higher. After we were so brazenly, blatantly, obviously lied to completely. And the only ones still supporting that lie are neoconservative douche nozzles like fucking Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity are still the only ones that even try to defend Bush. Oh, well, no. Yeah, no, there were. It was a good thing. It was a. They interview Condi. Have you heard the fucking the machinations of any of these idiots? Rummy, Connie, Cheney, any of these fucking people. Oh, it was still the right thing to do. Can you really say that with a straight face? Well, they can because they have no soul. But anyway, but the result of that is that they blew the wad of any other president, official in the government to come and use that again. They used it to such a blatant extent that they've used it all up. The ability of the American people, it's going to take a long time. Like, it took that long, because we had Vietnam. That was kind of similar.
I was going to bring that up.
And it was that long until we had, now Iraq, you'd say, is comparable. Iraq and Afghanistan together, especially. And Afghanistan people were behind because that's where bin Laden was. Of course, now we're still there. Things are worse than ever. Taliban's coming back. It's a different show. But people have finally gone, no, stop fucking going these countries.
And by the way, I'll throw this out there. I was against Afghanistan when we went in there. Now, very few people can say that. By the time we were going into Iraq, it kind of became trendy to be anti-war. But when we were going to Afghanistan, Joe's completely right. 60 to 70% of Democrats saying, we got to get Bin Laden.
This was like 2-3 months after 9/11.
Harboring terrorists.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I was the guy, I was deemed extreme left, which just makes me laugh. It's going, nope, this is stupid. That is a country, that is where empires go to die. You cannot control that place.
And it's a Soviet perspective that maybe you brought to that.
Well, you're right. Yeah. I was growing up as a small child.
Most Americans don't know that. They just saw the news footage
and get it. The USSR was stuck there.
Now you're us. Yeah.
The USSR, believe it or not, actually has a better track record of occupying and taking down and domesticating countries. I mean, and they did it all over Eastern Europe, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, because they're not worried about this human rights, democracy bullshit. They go in there to liberate people, and they just basically kill everyone that disagrees and install a puppet dictator. And this is the part of the free worker and peasant revolution now. I mean, that's how they did it everywhere. And like I said, I'm not saying this was a good thing. I'm saying they did it because they were willing to be way more brutal than the U.S., and they couldn't pull that off in Afghanistan.
It's just impossible. The terrain, all that stuff. And not to get off on that tangent, but I'm glad that. And I'll just to backtrack for my own thing from Afghanistan. I didn't have an opinion at the time. I'll be honest. I wasn't that politically involved at the time with things, but I accept it on its face. Okay, we're going there to get Osama, but I thought this meant we would be there a few weeks. And we'd come out with his head on a pike, and that'd be over. Did I see us still being there 12 years later? No, I did not. No.
And here's the thing. When you talk about, when we went in there to get Osama, of course we had to get Osama. No one's saying we didn't need to get Osama. But if we'd taken 1/5 of the resources, 1/10 of the resources that we've used for both wars, and use them to covertly get Osama. I mean, there's so many...
we did.
Eventually, but there's so many interests there to exploit Pakistan, Afghanistan. It's like, Osama, $25 million? Yeah, Osama's over there. No, I'll go with you. It's him.
And he wasn't even hard to find when we found him. Well, he was kind of known to be in that town.
Right.
All the people were in that town.
He was living, next door to their West Point, Pakistan.
Yeah.
Which, I'm my running joke about that, he was probably a guest lecturer. This is how you kick America's ass. Yeah.
You want to know how to bomb America? This is how you do it. Yeah,
essentially. Yes. So if we'd used 1/10 of the resources to just go in and get him, we could have gotten him by 2003, and then you take him out, you put his head on a plate, and you post pictures all over the internet, all over the news. You fly planes into our buildings. This is how you end up. No monster celebrity status, no shredding of the Constitution, no ridiculous invasions and occupations that thousands of our guys die and fuck up our economy. It's like, this happens. And every new potential Bin Laden would be looking at this and going, I'm just going to die. And that's going to be my head on a plate.
Yeah.
And that's how you stop terrorism. You don't give them what they want.
The flaw in that logic is that none of the defense contractors and the moneyed interests want a short, effective war that hardly any supply and treasures committed to. They want endless,
It's not a... That's
why they wanted Vietnam war. For one thing.
Of course. But this wouldn't be a war. This is an anti-criminal operation. And we could have used that to learn how to get these Taliban assholes that we're now letting out of Gitmo. We don't have a framework for dealing with non-government organizations that want to kill us. We really don't. It's not anywhere in the Constitution.
That's true.
And this is a huge... As long as they're not in the
and
U.S.
Not to mention, that's another thing McCain was disagreeing with himself on, is when he was saying that they should have put the Benghazi ringleader that they just captured in Gitmo and not brought him here for trial. He was saying, no, they should have put him in Gitmo. Even though when he was running in 2008, he was saying he would close Gitmo. He would put them in Leavenworth, Kansas. You remember that? He would put them in Leavenworth. I remember when he said that.
Well, again,
and even he forgot about it.
Well, he's old.
So even he doesn't. He disagrees with himself about what to do with these people.
True, but we really don't have... And you think we would have learned by now because, we had the 50s and the 60s with all the commie guerrillas running around in South America and in Southeast Asia. But no, we don't want a framework for doing that because it's expensive, for one, to develop one, and you have to acknowledge how much stupid shit you did before that doesn't fit, and the president and the executive branch would have to relinquish a whole bunch of their powers, and basically they just use the vagueness of terms like terrorist to do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
Now, this to me is scarier than anything going on in the Middle East, because they're basically whatever they're doing to these guys in Gitmo today, they're going to do to you tomorrow.
Well, it allows the possibility, and I think that I don't want to say definitively because I mean we don't know, but the one thing of this idea though, I think of what I'm hearing from you saying is the idea that we just arbitrarily set up these extrajudicial, not official systems that don't in any way jive and just make it up on the fly with these guys. Keep them off our shores because there's rights if they... It's the whole thing like we were saying before when Maggie Mino was on our show last time. When you actually arrest someone, when it's an arrest, they have rights.
I know,
there's things amazing. You can't do, there's things you can't ask, there's things they don't have to say. But when it's not an arrest, you're just getting a free ride in a police car, as she would say. There's all these... once you're in this gray area, there's no right and there's no wrong
100%
anymore.
with you. And
yeah,
what we're doing
that's the scary part.
Yeah, we're creating this new status. And not just this, well, obviously terrorist.
Enemy combatant.
Which is neither here nor there. Well,
yeah.
enemy combatant has been around. It's actually terrorist. And then new powers for the president that are kind of presumed by precedent, but they were never, if it's not in the Constitution, it's not a power of the president. Mitt Romney, hear me, please.
Yes.
The president has an authority now. Says who?
Well, an NDAA, I'm looking in your direction.
Right.
This dovetails on something else we're going to be doing a show on later.
Once you have that authority, once you've set that precedent, then you can just go and attach that label to whoever is inconvenient for you.
I love that Obama and his little rider to when he signed the NDAA, he's like, I won't actually do this stuff, but I'm going to sign it into, policy anyway.
And,
right. The idea is just galling.
Absolutely. So... this whole war, really both of these wars, the fact that we're not fighting state agents, we're not fighting governments, that's a huge part of the problem. We don't have a framework. We just basically keep bashing the hornet's nest with a stick and wondering why it's not working. And then whoever is in power, that's who gets blamed. So right now, Obama's like, it's well done. No, it was not working under Bush. There's zero reason to believe that it was.
Miss me yet?
No, we hardly noticed you left.
No. Go paint something. Okay, shut up. Yeah,
really. So, to finish kind of my thought on the history and what's going on now, I think that if we leave it alone, which I'm hoping we may, actually have my hopes up that it may happen, these guys will fight to a stalemate. Whether it's ISIS on one side, of course, with the Saudis behind them, our best friend in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. And the Shia side, the Iraqi government, whoever may replace them, with Iran behind them. War is expensive. It's expensive not only in terms of money. People don't like you when you're in a perpetual war. Bush Jr., I'm looking at you, asshole. It does not do wonders for your popularity. Plus, you have the Kurds that are a third kind of a wild card in this, and they'll turn the tide as many times as they want. So, I say, let them go. They want to fight, and neither of them is going to gain hegemony. And then, about 10 years, I would say, people will dry up on this war, and they'll say, okay, you know what? These borders that they've drawn out, which actually makes sense, we're just going to keep these borders, and we're going to lynch these assholes in power, and actually start moving toward democracy. People have to be committed to where they are before they can build democracy, to the borders that they have. And, like I said, the problem with the way the borders are drawn, for me, not for ExxonMobil, I don't give two shits what their problem is. The problem
they don't have many problems. They have enough money.
Right.
Yeah.
The problem for me is who's in charge, and that's on both sides, not just ISIS. But I don't see them maintaining power for very long because they suck at it.
Yeah, they're good at waving a nationalist banner around and shooting
a bunch
a gun.
Of dead bodies.
Well, that's about it. Yeah.
But the thing is, again, even
now
that,
what? It's kind of like Occupy Wall Street. A lot of rhetoric and anger, but then what? What do you actually want to do? Freedom?
Right. Not only that, but this whole summary executions and posting videos, that was a really stupid idea.
Yeah.
That does not endear people to you. That scares the shit out of them and brings them to the other side. And anyone that's funding an army is like, hey, you fucking idiots, what are you doing?
They're only convenient when you're expelling the government agents they hate. Then when they're gone, and it's just you and them, then we'll see what's up. Right. Yeah, so, exactly.
And then the whole buying Lexuses and Porsches, that also...
Yeah.
The country's starving and you're driving around a Porsche, you're going to be the guy that gets jumped. That's human nature. So
yeah, everyone in the hood knows that. You better have some fucking ass behind you behind that shit. Yeah.
Right. So all these tribal leaders that have helped him throw out the Iraqi government, they start trying to fight a prolonged war with this kind of political mindset, they're going to be out of power so fast. And the same thing with Iran. They're already on the verge of collapse. They've had, multiple revolution attempts, and just the politics of that country is going to shit. They get into a war where they have to invest their resources. The Ayatollahs are going too. And that's what we need in that part of the world. We need all the assholes in charge out. But we need them out by the hands of the people there. Because if we do it, we can just put in a bigger asshole and then we get blamed for the asshole in charge.
Yeah, aren't we the self-determination country? I thought, the Constitution, something... Freedom, self-determination, isn't that?
Well, that's for us. That's not for them.
Right, of course. Right.
Our self-determination for the rest of the world.
We need to start practicing what we supposedly preach. We really do.
I'm totally
ultimately
with you there. So I know it was a little rambly, this show, but I think we got our point across. And, I get into my lecture zone, and Joe has to balance me out and make it entertaining.
We have to at least drop a little truth into the discussion, at least. And I don't want to say, again, that we're the ultimate authority, but I think we're keeping ourselves mindful of actual history and not just glossing over the less attractive bits, or, someone who, maybe you're Don Rumsfeld and just don't want to acknowledge the fact that your war was a complete and abject fucking failure from day one, and they just want to paper over that part when they give their opinion of things now. It's like, no, okay? No. We have to be mindful of the past to move into the future. And ignoring facts, I'm just not down with that at all. Right. So, no.
And, on the other side of this, if we do get involved somehow, whichever side, I can't see which side we'd get involved on, honestly.
Yeah, like I said, pick one.
Which of these guys, we're the good guys. But
here's being shot in the face, here's being shot in the head.
Face.
Turn the face with a shotgun or a rifle. Take your pick. Yeah, exactly.
So, if you're get involved, all we're going to do is perpetuate the problem. Whoever we put in is going to be a brutal dictator. They're going to be hated by whoever they're running over. They will turn on us, and then their own people will turn. You can't stop this.
At the risk of turning into neurotoxin, the burden of proof is on the claimant. You have a solution. Fucking prove it's going to work. So far, now I can just, all I got to do is point at everything that's happened to this point backward and just go, no. Prove that we can do differently than that.
Why do you hate that turned into neurotoxin? Neurotoxin's better looking than you. I'm just kidding.
That's all. I don't need more evidence, do I? That's my evidence. You chuckle fucks haven't done a good job yet. Prove to me that you even can. No, it's not going to happen.
Joe, you wanted to say a word or two about a certain non-candidate for president that's been running since the day Obama got reelected. I'm pretty sure that's a record. Pretty soon they're going to start running for 2 elections out.
Yeah, and if you're reading our page, we've had our little fun with Hillary Clinton, and I've already mentioned her once. But, you were saying, and this is a different show. We'll get into this more as things develop, and I can't wait for our election coverage 2016. Oh, wow. Like we said, get the popcorn ready, warm up everything. It's going to be so hilarious. But anyway, she just has no argument. I don't see how she has one leg to stand on with this issue. And if this continues to devolve the way it is, and she wants to run, it's like, it almost seems like you were pointing out, she's trying to run the campaign she wants to run in the middle of shit that's actually happening all around her that she just is choosing to just cover eyes and ears and ignore. And it's like, no, if Iraq is falling to shit, and you were Secretary of State, and then before that you were a senator that voted for the war, I'm sorry, you're going to be asked about Iraq. This is inconvenient for you, I know, because you just don't get to be president. I don't just get to be. There actually has to be an election, and I might not win. Yeah, that's how it works. and if we don't like your answer, guess what? You're gone.
It's
Done.
not Iraq. That's how it works. Yeah,
God.
just install you because you have the money and the power.
A few Democrats all just acting like Hillary being not only nominated but elected is just assumed. I want to point out that she was the assumption president in 2008. How'd that work out for her? That's all I'm saying. No. And I was added that at the end. Elizabeth Warren 2016. Done.
Well, and I mean, I have my arguments about why Warren may or may not be a viable candidate. But going back to Hillary, I agree with Hillary. You take one person that's really been on the wrong side of this from both perspectives.
Day one, yeah.
But really from both sides. Like, okay, you can reasonably say, well, the way Iraq went to shit is Bush's fault. Nah, it's not entirely true. It would have gone to shit anyway. But yeah, he certainly found a building on fire, so he went to his car and he grabbed a can of gasoline and said, I'm going to put this fire out! It's dumbass. Yeah. And guess what? Hillary was right in line with that. She voted for that shit. She supported one of Obama's ways to beat her in the primaries was that he was one of the few Democratic senators that opposed sending troops to Iraq. Just putting that out there.
And he was the state senator, to be fair, at the time, but he was against it.
Right, he was opposed to it. No, some of the continuing authorizations he actually voted against.
He did, that's true, yes, he did.
John Kerry was on board with this too, by the way, just so we're on the same page.
Yes, he did.
I mean, you talk about douchebag politicians that have been on the wrong side of everything.
So, let's keep in mind, America, our last two secretaries of state both voted for Iraq war. So, there you go.
And then she was Secretary of State as Syria is going to shit, and we're arming and funding the guys that are now ISIS. They can thank Hillary Clinton for their weapons. And this is the person that we're presuming is the... Really?
Yeah,
Okay, you want to talk about someone that both the right and the left can reasonably blame for this clusterfuck? There you go.
She's a good example, yeah.
Have at it. And while we're on John Kerry, I think John Kerry has built more consensus in the world than any U.S. Secretary of State in history. Because everywhere he goes, both sides agree. They're either going to tell John Kerry to fuck off and walk out of the talks. This is ever. It's Syria.
I hate you and you're my mortal enemy and I disagree with you and I'm going to kill you after we leave, but let's leave this fucking asshole.
Where is this asshole? Where did he come from?
Resolve. We agree that this guy's a dumb fuck and we're getting him out of here. Yeah.
Israel and Palestine, Ukraine and Russia, just everywhere he goes, they're like, John, just get the fuck out of here. Nobody...
Yeah, Hillary wasn't a great Secretary of State, but next to John Kerry so far, wow. She may be one of the best ever if we're just evaluating the both of them against each other.
When Obama was elected the first time, he was actually considering John Kerry for Secretary of State then. That, yeah. And I remember reading a very liberal article. I didn't agree with a lot of it, but one thing they were talking about Secretary of State is they're saying, not John Kerry. Because the 2004 election showed nobody likes him. And that's not a good place to be for a diplomat. For a politician, that's fine. For a diplomat, nobody likes you, doesn't take you seriously. It's that simple. So one thing I really quickly wanted to touch on, because this is very relevant, we're talking about, is what's going on in Israel right now. And because of the whole ISIS clusterfuck, no one's paying attention to this, and I think it's important and it ties right in. So what's been going on over there is, this is one of the reasons I brought up John Kerry, is, as we all know, since 2009, Hamas has controlled Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and the elected Palestinian government, which has some Hamas in it, but it's mostly Fatah, has controlled the West Bank. So those two Palestinian territories have actually been like separate countries. And the West Bank has actually, they've come a long way. They've actually built a much better relationship with Israel. Yeah, there's still a lot of problems between Israel, and Israel has plenty to blame the Israeli government for. But they've gotten to the point where they actually resolve their issues by talking to each other, not by shooting. It's amazing how that works. Whereas the Gaza Strip is still just basically, let's blow everybody's heads off. It's very interesting. So they were in the middle of talks in April, in like mid-spring, where John Kerry was presiding over these talks. That was the problem, right? Yeah, and it was Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, and Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. And the idea was, how do we, basically, they weren't so much peace talks, they were talks about what the fuck do we do with Gaza, with Hamas in Gaza. The talks fell apart. They reached a consensus. They're going to tell John Kerry to go fuck himself and walk out of the talks. And
good to build consensus.
Right, yeah, great. It's great. He's great at it. And then Abbas went home and made a deal with Hamas in Gaza that they're going to reunify their government, and now the Palestinian territories are, again, essentially one country, one territory, whatever. So then what happened a couple weeks ago is there were 3 teenagers that were hitchhiking through the West Bank. They're Israeli teenagers. One of them was even a U.S. citizen. And this shows you how friendly they've gotten with each other. They actually go travel. A lot of Palestinians from the West Bank, not from Gaza, go work in Israel. Like, this is, they're actually getting along. They don't necessarily like each other, but they're getting along. They were hitchhiking through the West Bank, and they got picked up, presumably, by someone that's affiliated with Hamas, with a terrorist group, and they disappeared. They got abducted. They were kidnapped. And nobody really knows who did it. With assumedly Hamas. Nobody knows where this Hamas is based, but it's happened before, and when Israeli citizens have gotten kidnapped, they've gotten killed. They take them back to Gaza, and they take them out, and this is a big thing. Oh, look, we're beheading those evil imperialists. So, just serious threat. Okay, that's what's going to happen. So Netanyahu's response to this was to call in the reserves, and Israel, every man and every woman is reserved for life, just so we're on the same page. So you call in the reserves, you're basically just raising the whole country to war. And essentially re-invade the West Bank. You didn't call it that, but when your military is running around in your streets...
You can call it whatever you want.
Right. Well, the idea is the West Bank...
You can call it tank dancing. It's still invading.
I like that, tank dancing. This is the thing, yeah. Well, it's like Iraq wasn't a war, it was a military operation. Yeah,
Korea wasn't a war, it was a police action.
Someone forgot to tell the Iraqis and the Koreans that.
Oops.
So, yeah. So in any case... because, this kind of thing is supposed to be dealt with by the West Bank police. Because, hey, somebody was abducted. This is not legal in the West Bank. But Netanyahu now doesn't trust the West Bank government, quote-unquote, because they're now in bed with Hamas. So we're going to put in our military and basically shut down entire cities and herd people into detention that we suspect of being involved in this. Now, I completely agree you have to find these kids. Okay, and again, I have family in Israel. We know of some listeners that are Israeli. So my side in this conflict has always been pro-Israel. But I don't have to like Netanyahu. I don't have to think this is a good policy choice to agree with Israel. Any more than I have to like Obama to be an American patriot. It's 10 times worse in that part of the world. If you don't support the government, then you're not on that side. Well, then go fuck yourselves.
Yeah.
Put Netanyahu and the head of Hamas in one cage, let them kill each other, and then we can all live in peace. It's
Rule
pathetic.
number 1, the government is not always right. Let's just start there,
it's
okay?
ridiculous.
It doesn't matter what government.
So he's trying to intimidate the West Bank government into saying, you see, no, you're not with us, so now you're the enemy, and now we're going to treat you like the enemy, and we're going to invade you. Does that remind you of somebody, a president we had? Yeah. What
who
that
now paints.
does... And they sell it like at St. Madeleine's Sophie Center. They're paintings. Hopefully, a few of us catch that joke. A few of our listeners catch that joke. You're not endearing the Palestinians in the West Bank to peace with Israel.
Like all these people who were too young to remember the last invasions, now they remember this one.
Well, the West Bank hasn't been occupied for a long time. That's all Gaza. Now you're pushing them into Hamas's corner in Gaza. What the fuck is wrong with you? And you see how it's a little mini conflict, but it's the same thing, and of course it ties into this.
Well, and of course they have all their American weapons, but anyway.
Well, Israel interestingly, Israel buys their weapons directly from our weapons dealers. They're not funneled, which...
It's the same like fighter jets, only with Israeli paint
actually,
on them,
one of the reasons Netanyahu and his party have been so powerful, I was actually wrong about this, I predicted that they would get voted out, but no, they've got even bigger, is because a lot of the Halliburtons and the Raytheons of the U.S. now, war is no longer popular in the U.S., so they're really pushing heavily on Israel because that's really their number 2 customer. Militarily speaking, military supply, military weapons speaking, military equipment speaking, that's the number 2 country in the world. Some even say it's number 1 to the U.S. I realize there's countries that have bigger militaries, but North Korea... I mean, they're fighting with sticks.
That's China, but they build their own shit.
They're not as big as Israel as far as equipment goes. They're just a much bigger country. I mean, if you think about Israel, the entire country of Israel is about 7-8 million people. I mean, compared to China, that's
7-8 billion. No kidding. No.
Well, no, but that
1.5.
That reminds me of a joke, and I think this will be a good place to wrap up. So, the president of China one of his advisors runs in and says, "Hey, Israel's going to invade us. We heard Israel's going to invade us. They're going to attack us." And the president of China looks at him and says, "How many of them are there?" "About 7 million. "Oh, well, just shut down that village."
Oh, God. Yeah.
Now, on the other side, the advisor to the Prime Minister of Israel runs in and says, "Oh, we heard China's going to invade us." "China? How many of them are there?" "About 1.6 billion. "Holy shit! Where am I going to bury that many people?"
Oh, God.
Well, because Israel has a history of getting invaded by people much bigger than them, but they're tiny and they have no space. And kicking their asses when they are. So I think we're good. I think, foreign policy shows. You're not going to hear a lot of disagreement between Joe and I. This is a place.
What to do maybe is different, but the core tenet of we just can't seem to do anything right when we fuck around these places. I mean, again, prove me wrong, people. Just prove me wrong. That's all I'm saying. And I'm free to be proven wrong. I'm open to be proven wrong. But not skeptical that I would be. That's all.
I kind of like this in the fact that, you remember I've been saying for a couple of years, I said this, in the 2012 elections, I was actually kind of hoping it happened sooner. We aren't there yet. That the libertarian-leaning right, and maybe even some of the nationalist and right social conservative, and the libertarian-leaning left with the progressives would come together, and they would maybe not be one party, but they'd be a coalition that would really kind of go against the center and the moderates in both parties. And this is the issue to do it. Because whether it's Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, or it's George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, these policies, they're in agreement with each other. And Joe and I are in agreement with each other, and we're in disagreement with them.
And what's funny is actually on Mar, I forget who said it, but somebody actually said that these neocons, they would look to Hillary for their policy, because she's the one that actually still carries it.
Absolutely.
And that's completely true.
So it is true.
Right.
And this is why I think that Hillary doesn't stand much of a chance, because those early primaries very heavily favor the far left. And they already don't like her, and this is not going to endear her to them. So I think that the Dave Bratt and that election, I know we didn't touch that topic.
Very non-interventionist,
right. But he's very honest, and I've heard from a lot of people, I don't have the data, that a lot of Virginia Democrats actually crossed over to vote for him because they despise Eric Cantor. And they'd already elected their guy in a convention. They already knew who was going to be the nominee there, but he also doesn't stand a chance. It's a very red district.
Right.
So they stepped over and they voted for the other guy. You see how it's happening, people. It's happening. The left's getting behind the libertarians. What the fuck are you going to do about it?
It'll be interesting times, for sure.
And setting up this idea of right and left coming together against the police state, and some of the things we've said about government authority and them basically chipping away at the Constitution by creating non-constitutional labels. Why don't you tell us who our guest is going to be next week, Joe?
Yes. So next time we are going to be talking NDAA. And if you don't know what it is, you can look it up between now and then. We're going to be breaking it down. We will be welcoming Dan Johnson, president of the organization PANDA, People Against the NDAA. And, basically just detailing, A, what it does, B, what it means, and C, what it may mean going forward to how, I guess, laws are enforced. Because there's a lot of things in it that aren't just the indefinite detention stuff, which is something that obviously gets most of the attention. Right. Justifiably so, but yeah, there's more to it than that.
And what can be done about it, and what you can do about it as a city.
And how we can, start to turn it back, because this idea, it's just scary. When you read more about it, the idea that this is, right now, official policy of the federal government, very frightening. So look for that. We're going to be welcoming yet another guest. So far we've been doing really well with guests. We were really pleased with Maggie McNeil, and so we're looking forward to a really great show with that. So make sure to tune into that one and not miss it.
All right. Thank you for being with us. I'm Neurotoxin.
I'm Joe Ryan. Thank you for listening to The Edge of Chaos. We can be found on the internet at edgeofchaospodcast.com. That's edgeofchaospodcast.com. Contact the show, edgeofchaospodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at edgeofchaosshow. We can also be found on Facebook at facebook.com/theedgeofchaos. Neurotoxin's blog can be found at neurotoxins with an S, FYG, at blogspot.com. My blog can be found at joeryansworld.blogspot.com. For Neurotoxin, this is Joe Ryan. Thank you for listening to The Edge of Chaos.
it's an amazing. I've never seen anything quite like this administration. It is the first war that I know of that we are having the discussion that we should have had before the war, afterward. And it's why the Democrats are having trouble, because they didn't do shit. They laid down. And in light of all the information that has come out, that is so much information that my head hurts now again, that it is beyond belief that this occurred. It is beyond belief. It's extraordinary. They didn't, all I asked from the very beginning, all I gave a shit about, I said, first off, I knew they didn't have weapons of mass destruction. How did I know that? I was just sitting on my fucking couch. Well, you can't be sure. I wanted to go, trust me, you fuck. How did I know more than the CIA? That's almost impossible. Except the CIA seems to be filled with guys who wanted to be weathermen. Just give me a shot. But the thing that was really ridiculous, they didn't have a plan. That was the thing that kept bothering me. They kept saying, we're going to go in there, we're going to install democracy. Well, that was how? What, are you going to give them all civics books and they're going to have to take a fucking test? How could they not have a plan? And how could the Democrats not have asked for it? And just said, that could have been, that's all you had to do. What the fuck are you going to do? How do you not ask that question? But the bigger shock is that they didn't have a plan. Even I couldn't imagine that. I kept thinking, well, they must have a plan. I mean, even when, we were drunk last night, we got here. I've never seen anything like this administration, as I was saying. I've got Rumsfeld is on TV. What is sad is I watch this shit. What is sad is I watch it. Rumsfeld's on Meet the Press. There's something. You want to fucking wake up for the week? You watch when these fucking idiots have to talk for more than a minute. And then you'll learn about leadership. They got Rumsfeld. They're saying to Rumsfeld, you said it was Iraq was an imminent threat. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. You said it was an imminent threat. I never said that. We may have said that they had sort of maybe nuclear capability, but I didn't use the word imminent threat. Well, you did. Well, no, I didn't. Well, then they show tape of him fucking saying it. And then he says something like, well, you didn't really know what I meant.